What's up, everyone? This is Mike Cazayoux, and you're listening to the Brute Strength Podcast. This week, I interviewed Director of Strength and Conditioning at Brute, Nick Fowler. The Open is about 6 weeks away, maybe a little less now at the time you're listening to this. We talk about how to prepare for the Open. We talk about what to do when you get there, how to prepare for each workout, and how to even mentally prepare for what's to come. You've been training all year long, and whether this is your entire season, the Open is your entire season, or you're, on the cusp of making it to regionals, or you're a potential games athlete, we go into all of those different scenarios and how you can prepare for your specific scenario. If you are interested in preparing for the Open with us, we've created a code just for you. It's worth 17% off the first month, and it is Open Prep. So go to brutestrengthtraining.com/programs, sign up for Games Prep or Compete, and type in the code Open Prep at checkout for 17% off. It's 2017. That's why the 17. If you're wondering that. Also, if you're a regular listener of this podcast and you have not yet given me a review on iTunes, please put this on pause, head to iTunes, leave me some feedback, leave me a review. I would really appreciate that. I'm going to invite any of you that are interested to call into a voicemail that I have set up and leave some questions. So then I'm going to play back your question on the podcast, and I'm either going to answer the question myself, or I'm going to get one of my guests to help me answer those questions. If you're interested, the number is 801-449-0503. That's 801-449-0503. Enjoy the show.
Hey, Mike. My name is Will Anderson. I'm a rugby player from Nashville, Tennessee, and I work out at Pro Vita CrossFit here in Nashville. My question is, as a rugby player, I'm constantly operating between anaerobic and aerobic pathways. And I'm wondering if that when it comes to training, do I train both independently, or within the context of my training, should I be combining those to prepare for game day? And if so, how do I combine training both pathways at once? Thanks.
What's up, Will? Thanks for calling in, brother. So I'm going to get my colleague Nick Fowler to help me answer this question. And as we listened to your voicemail, we took it a little bit. We both took it different ways. So we're going to give you a couple different ways to think about this. So what I heard you saying is, in your sport, you have. And just to be clear, no matter what we're doing, whether we're walking, sitting, etc., we're always operating on both of those pathways for sure. But you're going through segments where you're sprinting or you're jumping or you're throwing, which are explosive anaerobic movements. But you're also doing a lot of jogging, walking, resting in between. Maybe you're taken out for a bit and you come back in, and that's more the aerobic side. So my philosophy in training athletes in, what I would call real sports, not exercise or fitness sports, is to train them separately for the most part. So in the beginning of the day, you're doing power and ballistic type movements, right? The highest neurological demand movements, the fastest movements, if you will. Then you're training strength. Then you're training your auxiliary and your assistance exercises, your structural balance types exercises. Then ideally later in the day or the next day, you're going to do your conditioning or your aerobic work, right? So that makes up probably 90% of how I train an athlete like yourself. The only caveat is I am a huge believer in training both at the same time with joint-friendly movements. And for example, I'm talking about sled pulling, sled pushing, ball throwing, and you can follow all of these up by with bounds and sprints and stuff like that. So you could do a 20-yard super heavy sled push followed by a 20-yard all-out sprint, or you can do a 10 to 20 pound med ball toss and follow it up with a 40-yard sprint. So in those ways, you're able to train both pathways, right? So Nick, how did you take it, and give them another way to think about that?
Yeah, I 100% agree with you, Mike. There's a lot of stuff out there that talks about polarized training and kind of training opposite ends of the spectrum to get better at the middle end. And that's what I heard was the question of, like, should you train that middle pathway? And what I'm talking about is threshold work. I think the sport you're in would benefit greatly, and you operate at threshold probably at least multiple times during a game, and so increasing your overall lactate threshold would be very beneficial. I'll give you one thing that you can do on top of what Mike's talking about. With this being said, I'd probably put it in maybe once a week at the most. It's kind of potent work, but basically looking at threshold work. So step test, if you're familiar with that, you can get on really any machine. If you have a CrossFit that has an air assault bike, work perfectly. What you're going to do is you could start at, let's say, 125 watts, and you're going to maintain 125 watts for 4 minutes, and then you're going to rest for 30 seconds. During that rest, you're going to take your peak heart rate and your average heart rate, write that down. You're going to increase 25 watts and perform another 4 minutes, and you're going to basically repeat this until failure, right? So maybe you get to 275 watts and you fail and you can't meet that. So then that would be a failure point. You'll find your max heart rate at that point. You can do some research online, Google like training zones, things like that, so that your max heart rate is a little useful. But what you can do is wherever you fail, go back 3 steps, and then within that, whatever that wattage, that power output, that heart rate is generally someone's threshold. And so you could do work similar intervals at that wattage to help increase your overall threshold. You can also use that heart rate, let's say if you're going to be running or rowing, as a reference point. Now, it doesn't necessarily translate from machine to machine all that well, but this is kind of like the poor man's lactate test, if you will. So you can use a step test, go ahead and do it. And yeah, if you got additional questions, you can hit us up.
Appreciate it, Nick. Hope that helps, Will. What's up, everyone? This is Mike Cazayoux, and you're listening to the Brute Strength Podcast. I'm here with the Director of Strength and Conditioning at Brute, Nick Fowler. Nick, how are you, man?
I'm doing pretty well down here at Wodapalooza, enjoying the Miami sights and drinking my Café con Leches. It's good. It's good
Hell
time.
Yeah. So for those of you who are not watching this live, we're actually doing a live recording of this show. If you ever want to go back and watch it, it'll be saved on the Brute Strength Facebook page. A couple of days ago, me and Nick tried to do this for the first time ever, and I completely botched it. So now we're just using my phone instead of doing it on a video conference. So we're recording it together in Miami and showing it on the phone. Anyway, Nick, tell us why we're here in the first place for Wodapalooza and kind of how this experience has been for you.
Yeah, I love Wodapalooza. I've come down, this is probably my 4th year. Yeah, we've got, I think, I was trying to do the math. We've got over 23 athletes competing here from Brute Strength.
Hell yeah.
And it's awesome. We've got folks on 5 different teams. And then there's at least close to 10 to 12 individuals, just, an array of folks competing. So it's super exciting. I'm obviously down here. Well, we're all down here giving support and watching our folks compete. And it's a little, I always find it a little frustrating coming down here and trying to coach at this event, just because the dynamic is one that you really can't effectively coach. A whole bunch of different reasons. Like coaches aren't allowed in the warm-up area, and it's so loud. If you guys have not been to Wodapalooza, it's a good time, but you cannot escape the Miami music, which is a lot of fun. But it's
for about an hour.
Yeah,
and then it gives you a headache.
Yeah, exactly. So Yeah, and then and it's really the preparation for a lot of folks. This is the biggest event of their career. There's folks. This is their first competition. I know that Mitch on the Brute team, it's his first. I imagine Wodapalooza being your first ever CrossFit competition. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, and I think he's done a couple local ones, but this is his first significant one at all, and he's going against the Smith brothers and Panchik brothers and people like that.
And that's pretty cool.
It's a crazy experience. I'm glad he's getting it in before regionals so that they can go and beat Mayhem. I'm excited for that.
Totally. And then for some folks, it's just fine tuning. I think a lot of the skills for the Open, for the regionals, for the games. We've got some games athletes here throwing down, and so it's a good time.
Hell yeah, yeah. Guido and the guys have put together an incredible competition as always, but this year they've really outdone themselves. It's really, really well done. We always get the question, should I be doing, like, how many competitions should I be doing outside of the CrossFit HQ season, the official CrossFit season? What's your take on that? Like, how does one decide if Wodapalooza is right for them, or when they should do other competitions, and how many should certain people be doing every year?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it really depends on who you are, what your goal is, and where you are in your own personal athlete development. So I really believe that competitions for some folks can be very, very valuable, and for other folks it can actually undo a lot of the work. And so, a couple examples that I have in mind is if you're an athlete, let's say you're a regional athlete and you're buying for the games, there are so many limited spots at the regional level that to give up training time might not be worth it, right? Now, if you're the type of person that your holes and your weaknesses are come game day, right? Game day jitters, strategizing, like you kind of become a little bit, unraveled, then coming in and making sure those things are smoothed out are pretty good. So I think that the more experience you have competing, the less you should actually compete.
Right. Couldn't agree more. Yeah, I have kept Brooke from doing the Dubai Fitness Championship this year because of that reason. Like, every session matters now. She's got a couple little, she's a little banged up, and so I want her to be 100% come time the Open and come time regional. Same thing for Hepner, right? He went on that Nepal trip, and we're like, we need to buckle down. You have all the experience in the world, and he's a gamer, right? He goes to competition and he outperforms himself, right? Those types of people don't necessarily need those extra competitions under their belt.
Yeah, completely. And it's always kind of weighing the benefits and the costs, right? This close to the Open is if you're open, if you're a bubble athlete, hoping to get to regionals, and you come and you compete now, it's tough, right? A big weekend like this is going to take you out for another week. Now, it doesn't mean you're not going to be training and all that, but you have to recover, and the systemic stresses, there's just no way around it, right? So,
what's a systemic stress?
Systemic stress, right? It's a fancy
word.
$5
word.
It's a $5 word.
Well, that's 2 words, I guess. I'll give you $5 for both, though.
For both?
Yeah.
Not 10. Okay. No, systemic stress. So I think about, and this is where I think about and how I think about training is that training is a stress, right? Lifestyle is a stress. Like lack of sleep. Like if I told you not to sleep for 3 days, your body systemically, meaning like, holistically, however you want to
your entire body, right?
Your entire body, right? From the cellular level to just the way you're thinking. You just think about how you feel, lack of sleep, is in a stressed, right, state. And so if you're in a stressed state, that means your ability to actually perform and get any benefit out of training is going to be limited, basically because you can't recover from it. So what I mean is that a big event like Wodapalooza, you're going to come out of it, your whole body is going to be stressed. And so your physiologically, your ability to adapt over the course of the next week is going to be really, really limited. You really should be kind of resting and recovering. It looks like different things for different people.
Right. And the reason I think that's important is because a lot of people, they think once their muscles aren't sore anymore, right? Their triceps aren't sore, their legs aren't sore on Wednesday, that they're fucking ready to roll, right? But that's not the case. After something this heavy, their central nervous system is still shot, they're systemically stressed, and they're still not going to get the most out of training, and they need to realize how long it takes to fully recover.
Yeah.
Is that kind of where you're going with that?
Completely, yeah.
So the point of this podcast is to, get people ready for the Open and let them know what to expect, how to make the most out of their next, 5-6 weeks. And then once we get there, what to do. So I want to start out from your perspective. What do we know for sure we're going to see in the Open based on prior Opens, and maybe if you have an idea on what might come out of the hat, right? He seems to be, he being the Castro, releasing like maybe one new thing, like a modality or movement every year, or maybe two. So if you have an idea of what he might release this year, I would love to hear that.
Yeah, I wish I knew, right? That's the $1 million question. Well, we know, the things we know is there's going to be 5 workouts. Right, so it's going to be 5 weeks. It's going to be released on Thursday night. So that's actually a big part of it, because then it allows you now to set up your schedule to anticipate maybe competing Friday morning. So you know that that's something that you can change. Then that's what those 5 weeks are going to look like. You're going to compete Friday morning. Now, what those exactly are going to be are still kind of unknown. But we've known, if you look through the history of the Open, you can see there's about 12 movements that have consistently come up. And ironically, burpees didn't come up. Was it last year or the year before? They all kind of blend together. Anyway, so right. Anybody who worked with me really, really hated me because of the amount of burpees that they did, and then they just didn't even come up in the Open. So anyways, but we know that wall balls, there's going to be an Olympic lift of some sort. Usually both come out. Mm-hmm. They're usually historically has been submaximal. Except for that 1 year where you had to max out prior and after that little Metcon. And so, there's going to be, or there has been, an ascending ladder that has required an engine for you to get to heavy weights, almost like a little barbell cycling with a deadlift box jump some years ago, things like that. There have been, in the past couple of years, that nasty row coupled with something else, whether it's burpees or thrusters right. or something like that, a big breather. And so you can look at the movements, which is great for us athletes and coaches, where we can say, okay, well, given the chances of these 12 movements coming up, let's get really efficient in these, right? So movement quality is huge. Efficiency, right? Mm-hmm. And if you're not moving well, you're giving away and you're leaving a lot of points on the table.
Right. Yeah. Statistically speaking, I know that the clean and jerk, the snatch, and the pull up are by far the most, they're going to come up the most, and sometimes multiple variations of those movements, right? We might see a bar muscle up as well. We might see an overhead squat as well, push press, whatever, squat cleans, right? So I think those for sure are going to come up and potentially multiple times. So based on all of those, what can people do between now and the start of the Open, and what can they actually improve on? I made an Instagram post a couple days ago. Obviously you're not going to put 50 pounds on any of your lifts, right? So as far as those max lifts go, there's not much you can do at this point. What is there room for improvement on at this point?
Yeah, so 6 weeks out of anything, it really becomes a microscopic view of what skills you should be improving upon. And I think the easiest way to do it or get exposure to that type of stuff is put in your warm-up. A really, really easy way. So if you know that double unders are something that is a hole in your game, right? Well, it's easy to put those in a warm-up, I'd say every other day, mm-hmm. right? Going in every day and doing 300 double unders is probably going to create some issues, but you can, think about maybe getting in every other day. So
and
I think
in those sessions, or in those little warm up segments rather, what does that look like? Are you trying to build volume? Are you doing very short sets for that neurological adaptation? What does that look like?
Yeah, so what I would say is it's just volume and practice, right? Neurological adaptation. So basically, with muscle ups specifically, you're trying to repattern, or movements in general, right? You're trying to. So our neural anatomy is really interesting. It tends to lag behind physical changes for most of us, and the older you are, the actually slower it is to catch up. And what I mean by that is that we might have the ability, the mobility to, let's say, move a squat to depth, right? Or move through a range of motion. But if our brain doesn't send a signal for us to actually contract and actually engage and move through that range of motion, we're just going to be limited. So I would think about a big part of that warm up is just focusing on quality movement. And it can be like wall balls, it can be a giant flow session, but it should be quality movement focused around improving efficiency, if you will. And so this is my suggestion, I guess, is that I would take 20 to 30 minutes. And honestly, that's what your warm-up should entail if you're serious about the open, a minimum of 20, 30 minutes. And so if you're the guy or gal who goes in 5 minutes, a little spin on the bike, some mobility, you count you're putting on your knee sleeves as part of your warm-up, like start looking at that now. So 20, 30 minutes, and you can build, it's even just like a 20-minute AMRAP, not for time, and put in all the stuff that you need improvement upon. You can look at the past opens and just maybe include some of those movements in there. And so it might look like 30 double unders, 10 wall balls, light wall balls, right? So if you're a male, use a 10-pound ball. If you're a female, use a 6-pound ball. It's just about moving, right?
Got it.
And just think this is just pure warm up, right? Maybe if it's a snatch, overhead squat, maybe it's just PVC work, right? You're just moving through the full ranges of motion, and it can be 10 different movements over the course of 20 minutes. You should be able to have a conversation the entire time, right? Nose breathing only.
Gotcha. Yeah, the key there is not for time, for sure. That's to have quality movement in general. You cannot be under fatigue when you're practicing, especially if it's something you're not proficient at yet. Yes. Yeah. What do you think about many years when a ring muscle up comes out, and I'm sure this happened on the bar muscle up last year. I was in Peru, so I wasn't like as involved that week, but thousands and thousands and thousands of people get their first muscle up, right? If they could produce that same feeling of urgency right now, right? This week, next week, whatever, and get that muscle up now, how much better are they going to be when it actually comes out in the open, right? Is there any trick or tactic that you might have to help people get that sooner, or is it just like try to create that sense of urgency now?
Yeah, that's kind of a double-edged question, right? So I think on one hand, what I think about is that what have you been doing for the past 6 months, and where was that urgency 6 months ago? A lot of people, January 1st comes around, they're like, hey, I'm going to start training for the open. I'm like, it's maybe a little too late, right? Not too late, but you're behind the 8 ball. Now, we can't do anything about that now, but it's something to think about going into next year. But basically, the sense of urgency should be now, right? Like everything you're doing over the next 6 weeks is going to set you up for failure, and it's either going to take you closer to your goal, or it's going to take you further away. You're not going to stay stagnant. And the beautiful thing about it is there's so many resources out there to help you. Right? Between podcasts and videos and like seminars and just educational things. And now it seems like there's so many people, almost maybe to a fault, that are giving like open prep tips, right? I almost think that it would be really nice for folks to give open prep tips before the open actually started, like 4 weeks early.
Almost like 6 weeks early, like on a podcast or something.
Yeah, on a podcast, yeah. Someone should do that. Because then it actually gives you an opportunity to put this stuff in the practice, right? So A good thing, and this is what I suggest to a lot of my athletes, is go pull up last year's open tips and listen to them and start trying to implement those things now. So that's something that you can tangibly do. Just Google, right? I mean, there's so many out there, and just start to practice those things, right? And really start to dial in the specifics. More and more, what I'm seeing in the sport of CrossFit is obviously we all need to be, to compete at a high level, you need to be well-rounded. You need to have limited holes. But the biggest thing, and you saw this in regionals, is if you make a mistake, you're out, right? The open is a little bit more forgiving, but if you think about making a mistake is the difference between third place and seventh, or fifth and sixth. That's huge, right? So go into the gym every day from now until the open starts as if it was your open, and ask yourself, what would I be doing if it's the open, and what would I be changing?
Right. So without giving away the secret sauce, can you tell people a little bit about how the week is set up for our brute strength athletes in the games prep and compete programs, and maybe how, suggest how they should set up their week preparing for this open?
Yeah. We've set it up in brute strength very, very specifically, and it's something that we've been leading into for months, right? Everything that is happening now has been built upon from the months before, and then that has been built on the months before that. And so we're really at a place where if you've been at brute strength for any amount of time, your ability to work, right, your work capacity is huge. So the ability to tolerate a 30-minute warm-up and just feel like you're starting to kind of come into your prime, or the ability to come out of an open workout and feel good and be able to train some things, or go into the next day's event, is tremendous. Now, what I would suggest is look at your lifestyle. If you work an 8-to-5 job, if you work shift work, like whatever your life consists of, and plan out those 5 weeks, right? And so I suggest competing or completing open workouts a maximum of twice. I haven't never really seen an improvement in a score for someone doing it third time, unless they totally screwed the pooch, right? So plan on twice and set it up to where, honestly, it could be Thursday night, Sunday, it could be Friday morning, Monday morning, but set it up to where it fits your lifestyle, and then start replicating your training now to start to kind of emulate that. So a big thing I see a lot of people do is that, they're used to training at 9 a.m. and then the open comes around, there's Friday night lights, and they're like, oh, friends are going to throw down, and, they're going to, everyone's going to get to the gym at 7 p.m. Well, if you're not a person who's used to training at 7 p.m., that's probably one of the worst things you could actually do. Right. So if you know that there's Friday night lights gym going on, right, or if last year you threw down your friends and you need that social camaraderie to help you push, which a lot of people do, which is awesome, then start doing that now. Don't wait. And that's a little bit of sense of urgency that we kind of talked about, right? Where if you wait for those changes, and you're going to be behind the 8 ball.
Right. Yeah, I really like that. And especially people going to a local gym, a lot of communities will all get together and do it. And then it's like playing an away game at a time you're not used to. Right? Do it at your home, in your home stadium at the time you're used to, with all of those comforts. If you want to maximize, if you're just trying to have fun, do it with everybody. That's so exciting. Yeah. You know what? I have seen people get better a third, even a fourth time, but those people, their attitude is, I could always do it again. Right? I want our people, right? I want all of our athletes to go into it thinking, I have to train tomorrow, so this is it. Friday morning or whatever, sometime Friday, this is the only chance I have, right? So I have to lay it all out there. And plan B is do it Saturday or Sunday, which is going to affect the following training. But, the Open is extremely important, and if you're on the cusp of making it to regionals, then you absolutely need to do that. If the Open is your entire season, then do it as many times as you need. But especially for those people who are definitely going to that next level, they need to be thinking, this is my only shot.
Completely,
right?
yeah. And it's interesting because we talk about sense of urgency, and I think that the sense of urgency that I've seen in some folks when the Open hits is almost too late. They're like, oh, Friday, and it's not a good score, so they're going to try it again like Saturday, right? And then they're going to see how that is, and then maybe they'll like do a dry run Sunday, and then they'll try again on Monday. Well, that's like, you're just not going to be able to recover and give your best. And so knowing that if you compete Friday, allow yourself some time before you go again. Don't get sucked into this like feverish, like, oh my God, I got to like frantic kind of, rush to get these chances in. It's kind of like this idea that, oh, I missed Monday's training, so I'll just carry that into like Wednesday. It just doesn't work that way.
Right. What are the similarities and what are the differences in the way that different types of athletes need to approach the actual Open, right? So let's move on to we're at the Open, it's week 1. Someone who the Open is their entire season and they know they're not going to the next level, and then they have people that are kind of on the cusp of they hope to go to regionals, but it's not a given. And then there are the games athletes that know they're going to regionals, and the Open is just like a stepping stone.
Yeah. No, those are and those are very, very different scenarios, right? So we can start with a games athlete. It's kind of the
very
easiest.
simple, right?
Yeah. It's like, well, you train through the Open, right? The Open is a stepping stone. Don't let the Open affect your training, period. Now, there are some games athletes who are looking to win workouts, win their region, things like that. That's a different consideration. Probably won't even talk about that. I
would love for people to hear about that. What would be like, why other than ego and pride?
Well, I think the reality these days is that athletes, we're still in an emerging sport, right? And so as an athlete, and to become a full-time athlete, it takes a lot. And I don't think that our community, our culture is quite set up yet to really support an athlete the way others are, other sports. And so if you look at an athlete as a business, right, their brand, then it becomes very important. And it's not just for the next 3 years or the Open or that season. It's like, what is this person going to be able to create for themselves over the course of the next 10, 20, 30 years, right? So I don't think that it's a bad thing. It goes back to saying, hey, what's your goal, right? If your goal is to win the CrossFit Games, then don't put, basically you can take, like if you have 10 eggs, right? Like you have the ability to take those 10 eggs and put them into whatever baskets you want, but you only have 10, right? So if you want to win the Open, how many eggs is that going to take? And then how many eggs are you left with to be able to give to the Open? It's a very, very basic, general kind of way to look at it, but we can't do everything all the time. So if brand development, that sort of thing is important, then I can see value there. I think the other reason is confidence.
Right.
I think that some athletes really thrive on confidence, and it can be a snowballing, it can be a really powerful thing. And winning the Open is a very, very inspiring, powerful thing. And if you can go in, win the Open, do well at your region, and then go into the games, a lot of what we do and we're capable of, and a lot of our limitations is between our ears, right? And so I think that those are the two situations that I see. I don't know if you come across any others or.
No, I love it. And that first one is a perspective I hadn't even considered. So basically you're saying if a games athlete can win the Open on an egg white, then that's probably solid because they have 9.75 eggs left.
Totally. Yep. And your 9.75 better be better than someone else's 10 that they're saving, right? Like, yeah.
I love that. So what about the other two groups?
But egg whites are bad for you, just so you know.
Oh, okay. You hear that, Adi?
Yeah, egg whites.
Egg whites are bad.
I'm just kidding. You keep eating your egg whites.
What about the other two groups? How should they approach the open? How many times might they do the workouts, etc.?
Yeah. The other two groups are similar in a way. And so to clarify the two groups, right, we have one group who is just a bubble athlete getting to regionals, and then the other person is a regional athlete, but kind of a bubble games athlete. Is that what we're talking about?
No, let's go bubble regional athlete, right? They're on the cusp, and they have to try as hard as they possibly can to make it to regionals. And then there's the people that, they're just competing in the open to compete in the open. Awesome. And that's their season.
Yeah. So we'll bookend it. So the folks who are just looking at having fun in the open, competing in the open, that's their season. They're maybe trying to go. I work with some folks who are just trying to go from like 900 to 600, and for them,
fittest in their gym or their community.
Totally,
it's awesome.
Yeah, and with the ability to like filter all that stuff, like it's just very cool, right? Mm-hmm. So if that's your goal, I'd really look at the cost of competing. And every time you compete, every time you invest in a goal, there's a cost. Mm-hmm. And a good example is we'll take some extremes like the Olympics, right? 4 years, what are you giving up, right? Now, not putting any value, it's not good or bad, anything like that. So over 5 weeks, like, what does that cost you? Like, are you gonna have to take time off of work, right? Like, you have kids and you're not spending Saturdays with them, like. And again, it could be, it could be great, and that's could be a valuable thing to you. But it is kind of a look at that. And then I think something that a lot of folks don't think about is, how do you feel coming out of the open? I know that myself and I know a lot of folks that, like, I come out of the open and the last thing I ever want to do is like set foot in the gym again. Mm-hmm. And it's like my soul has been just crushed, and like it's just even hard to like enjoy the gym, the community, and things like that. And I think that if you're in this group, that's something really to consider, right? Like, how much are you willing to give and put into this? Now, and if that being said, I'd say that you can kind of I would put your training on hold. And what I mean by that is just have still maintenance training, but really think about just staying healthy, mm-hmm. and competing and having fun, right? This is your 5-week time to compete. Yeah. And so don't take the rest of the training all that seriously. And I think that's a huge way to kind of keep, week 6 of the open enjoyable.
Right.
If that makes sense.
Right. Yeah. All of the other training in between your open attempts is going towards preparing you for that next workout, right? Or recovering from the previous one. I like that.
Yeah, completely. And so I think allow yourself that. Mm-hmm. You're not going to, the reality here is that you're not going to get better in the 5 weeks of the open. You lose fitness. Mm-hmm. There's no way to improve your fitness.
If you're one of these athletes doing it multiple times, several times,
yeah. Even for games level athletes, it's really, well. Let me take that back. For some high level athletes, because there's always exceptions. For some high level athletes, you can get fitter through the open, but it's really, really mm-hmm. unique.
Yeah, Hebner better be putting on some meat in those 5 weeks, man.
Oh, Hebner's gonna kill it. He's I think even talking with Zach just this weekend, he was like, man, Hebner's a beast. Like right now he's just like, he's so hungry, and so he's ready to tear heads off of teddy bears and things like that. So
that's brutal, man. So okay, we have one more group left. We have the group that is trying to make it to regionals. That's a huge group of people. How do they approach it?
Yeah, and so this is the meat of it, right? This is where you going to regionals is, you got to try, but you're going, right? It shouldn't be kind of a question or a major stress of whether you're going. Is that what we're talking about?
I'm
we're
talking about
the
people
bubble
that,
bubble athlete.
Yep.
Okay, so this means that like, yeah, this is your whole thing. Like you are basically giving your heart and soul to make top 20.
Exactly.
Perfect. So this is where the next 6 weeks are huge and even more important. And everything you should be focusing on should be refining your craft, right? And so every year, competition, athletes, like it's just amazing the caliber of performances we've been seeing, and they've been getting better every year. So you better be taking advantage of every opportunity over the next 6 weeks. So I'd say that's the first thing. The second thing is make sure that you're addressing all your holes. So unlike regionals in the games, where just the scoring system, you can get away with a hole in your game, the Open you can't, right? And so set it up, plan on doing it twice. I'm not a big fan of doing it 3 times unless it's a really unique workout. So just say twice. So, Friday, Monday, set up your whole entire day, start taking days off at work if you're that person. Start having those conversations with your family, your wife, saying, hey, look, like I'm checked out here and there. Make sure that like simple things like order your protein now. You don't want to be in week 2 and be like, oh man, I got to order protein. Like you don't want to think about that stuff. So
you don't want to go catabolic, guys.
No, it's all downhill from there. So yeah, just I don't know. I know some folks who kind of have a corner in their room and they have all their like open stuff. They're like starting to stockpile it, and they know the knee sleeves that they're going to wear, and they know if snatches and toes to bar come out, are you wearing Olympic lifting shoes? Like if you don't know that now, like go to the gym tomorrow and figure that out. I mean, it's just simple things like that. And so the way, similar to that first group, it should be about maintaining and perfecting the skills that are coming out, but I think there's a little bit more emphasis on what might be coming out. Meaning like if week 1, let's say there's wall balls and rowing, right? Horrible. Well, chances are you're like, okay, I don't need to do any more wall balls over the next 5 weeks. Okay, so what's left on the table? Well, we can just say muscle ups, pull ups, toes to bar, whatever. Those are the things you could be kind of working on the time between, right? But I think the biggest value is recovery and making sure that everything you're doing is setting you up for success for that repeat.
One thing that I'll add too, and I should have brought this up earlier, but one of the biggest ways you can improve between now and the start of the Open is, and what made me think of it is you're talking about, figuring out your gear and all of that kind of stuff, but practice the Open standards for different movements, right? One of the biggest being handstand push-ups. Every time you do handstand push-ups from now until the start of the Open, you should be setting up a line, and you could just put that in the gym and just keep it there, if you have that liberty at your gym. And your heels need to be over every single time, right? Another thing is you should probably film a workout maybe once a week. And we've started to do that with our brood athletes, right? It puts an entirely different, like psychologically, more than anything, it puts a different demand on you. You're having to think about every rep. Whereas, it's in sports psychology in general, and like, in any conversation about flow, right? When you start talking about an athlete thinking about their movement, then you're talking about their movement becoming harder and less efficient, right? It's kind of like faux pas to be thinking about your movement. But in the Open, we are required to think about our movement because we have to make sure our heels get over the little line, and it's almost out of reach every time.
Yeah.
So look to last year, the year before. Look at all the standards that might come up, and when those movements come up in your program, only practice those. I think that's a phenomenal way to psychologically prepare. The other piece of videoing, for some people, they don't care. For some people, just being on video and knowing that, someone might look at it can be really nerve-wracking for some, Yeah. So and also get a judge, right? Do workouts with a partner and do your Metcons with a judge, right?
Yeah.
And get them to actually call you out. It's one of those things that you can't post on Instagram. It's not sexy, but it will prepare you probably more than anything at this point in the season.
Yeah. And even things like, get to know your timer, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and how are you setting up your camera, right? Do you have the timer in view, or are you going to have to take it off the wall and put it somewhere? If you put it there, like, do you have an extension cord? Is someone going to come by and kick it out? I know people that's happened to. Yeah, awesome.
Yeah, I mean, especially the people that are doing the open for the first time at these like Friday Night Lights type situations, it can be so stressful. There's 100 people in the gym, and all of a sudden they're messing around with all of these new things, and their heart rate is just pounding by the time they even start the workout. And, it's just like being in a competition for the first time and kind of freaking out. It can be overwhelming for some people.
And that's a good point. So if we talk about that middle group of folks competing at Friday Night Lights, I don't think it's a good idea personally. I think that there's too many variables outside of your control. If you need to find a couple folks to push you, then maybe that's the way to go. The biggest thing I've found when you get 20, 30, 100 people together for Friday Night Lights type of situations is that your heat never starts on time. And so your warm-up is completely screwed. Right? Like, you end up warming up, you're ready to go, like, hey, everyone line up, and then, like, there's 20 minutes later and you go. And so that alone is something to really, really consider. And I'd say that for that middle group, your warm-up, it just should be dialed in. Like, it needs to be solid, and that's something to dial in now.
Yeah. So the hard part is, and my follow-up question for you is, it can be a gym owner's nightmare to have all of the regular gym members going at one time, and then this other group of people wants to go at another time. So if you're an athlete, how might you approach your gym owner?
Well, hopefully your gym owner is supportive and knows what your goal is, and that should be enough for them to be able to support you. I think having some understanding that, they're kind of logistical considerations. I would approach your gym owner kind of offering to organize that, if that makes sense.
Right.
Now, you got to be careful you don't take on too much and it doesn't distract you from your primary focus, but you can be like, hey, I've been thinking about this like every year, right? Like, there's this, but there's this group of folks that really are focused and it might be distracting, and you could kind of like offer to organize a little bit of that.
Right.
And I think gym owner, I'm a gym owner, and I would love that, right? Like, I think gym owners, and there's plenty of us out there that wear too many hats, right? So having someone come up and saying, hey, like, let me do this for you, man, great idea. So that's how I would approach it, right? But yeah, that's tough, right? Because you can't have, 5 different things going, 5 different open, then you need judges, and it becomes this kind of headache. So
I would say if you have a legitimate shot at going to regionals, then that's acceptable, and it's acceptable to make a request to go at a different time that is optimal for you. Yeah. If you don't have a legitimate shot, go with the rest of the group, right? Sure, you might do a little bit better, but it really doesn't matter. You should go with, that's just my opinion. I think you should go with the rest of the gym members, even if you might perform better. If you don't have a legit shot at going on to the next level, do it with the rest of the gym. The other thing, I lost my train of thought on that. I'll come back to it if I remember. What I wanted to talk about next is there's so many prep videos coming out, right? Every different team and organization is putting out their own open prep videos and stuff like that.
Brute strength.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, what's the best brute? And sometimes it's getting to the point where there's too much information.
Completely.
What are the things that people need to make damn sure they incorporate in their warm-ups for these things, or the day of, whatever it may be, like as they're sifting through all this info, what do they need to make damn sure they're doing to perform their best?
Well, I think the first thing not to do is don't, two things. Don't listen to them all and try to figure out, okay, now what am I going to do? And the other thing is don't listen to one organization or one like open prep, and then next week listen to somebody else's, and then a week after that, and because usually what you'll find is there's a theme. So I figure out, see what works for you, and if you don't know, this is a great opportunity. Like start looking them at now, right? They're different in style. I think there's some good ones out there. There's some not so good ones out there, but I think. I'd say honestly, like if you don't know who you're going to for that information, start looking at it now and make the decision before the open comes out. And the way you're going to make that decision is by putting that stuff into practice and saying, oh, this resonates, or be like, hey, I don't understand this, or it doesn't make sense, or it didn't work for me. Now, I think in a general term, when we look at warm-ups and preparing for the open, and this is something people can do tomorrow, right, is walk into the gym. We can talk about visualization, go down that rabbit hole maybe a whole different time. That might be just another cool like Facebook Live thing, like an actual exercise that people can develop. Right. But basically, walk into your gym or wherever you're going to do the open. So if you're going to start doing the open, if your gym has like multiple rooms, like where are you doing the open, right? So walk in, figure out where you're going to put your stuff. Like, habit and routine is huge, right? So just pay attention to it. You probably do it already, right? You come in, you sit on this part of the bench, you take your shoes off in this fashion, right? And just start becoming aware of that stuff. It's small, but I think it's powerful. And from there, every warm up, I think there's some, we'll just maybe start with the don'ts, right? Like don't, if you're a healthy person with a healthy range of motion, don't waste your time mobilizing. It does, anytime you compress local muscles, you're actually activating a parasympathetic response in your body. And so a parasympathetic response is one of relaxation and like healing and recovery, digestion, like all that stuff. That's the last thing we want. We want a heightened state of awareness, right? We want to get you like ready for war. So you'd want to avoid anything once you step through that gym to kind of foster the relaxed state. And so save your mobility for later, right? Go in and really start focusing in. Now, we can talk about masters and maybe folks with a less than better range of motion as a consideration, but generally leave that stuff till later. A lot of people, and I saw it all weekend, which is amazing, right? You see these high-level athletes literally warming up for 5 minutes and then getting out. And granted, competition's a little different and all that, but I think that at a minimum, everybody should spend at least 10 or 15 minutes breathing a little bit. And that's typically best on a bike, maybe a little bit of a rower, but that way you can kind of start prepping the system, right, for the stress that's going to come. A lot of people, if you've probably ever felt that you haven't warmed up enough and you do something like Fran or something like really, there's something that smacks you in the face. And there's this like preemptive, like I can't breathe, like, oh my God, like this sense of panic. And it's not even like mental. It's like the sense of panic is physical. And that's basically your body lack of preparedness to do what is going to be needs to be done, right? And so there's a lot that happens physiologically, like the dilation of like blood, blood vessels, increased circulation, like shutting down digestion, like all these things at a physiological level that's going to help us perform, right? Not going to go into that, but just know that getting on a bike for 10 or 15 minutes is going to be huge. And then from there, honestly, a lot of people partition their workouts where they do an aerobic piece, then they do their movement, and then they prep. I'm a big fan of like you do your aerobic breathing and then you go into your movement. And so a couple resources out there for folks that can that you can start looking at like Edel Portal's like animal movements, any like flow sessions, things like that. Great way to prep the joints and increase range of motion without actually mobility and activating or stimulating a parasympathetic system. So but while you're going through this stuff, right, body weight lunges, push-ups, crossover symmetry, whatever it may be for you, get on the bike and keep that heart rate going, right? You don't want to get your heart rate up and then shut it down for 10 minutes while you move. And then you can get into the specifics of the warm-up, the specifics of the workout. Now, there's a lot of people out there that do like 2 or 3 rounds of a workout, then rest for 5 minutes and then go. I'm not personally a big fan of this. There are some exceptions. If you can tolerate a tremendous amount of volume and you're a games athlete, this might be a really good approach. But generally, it's just like save that stuff. Don't waste those reps, right? And I break things down into smaller views. So like if you've got pull-ups, for instance, like you don't need to do pull-ups to warm up. What you need to do is think about, okay, what are you doing when you're pulling, right? Your elbow like flexion, so you're basically bending your elbow, right? A very, very basic thing. So like what else can bend your elbow without physically taxing you the same way? Ring rows are a perfect example, right? So like and so you can spend the majority of your stuff replicating the movements that are going to be in and prepping those like local muscles without actually taxing it. Now you still need to do pull-ups if you've got pull-ups coming out. But the other thing is,
so you're talking about the majority of your warm-up can be other things.
Yes,
right?
and should be other things, I believe.
Got it.
And very, very small piece. Like if we're talking about 15-minute breathing, 10 to 15-minute moving, and then let's say 10 to 15-minute specific. What is that, 45 minutes? So maybe only 10 of that is very, very specific, like replicating the movements. And only maybe 5 minutes of that is replicating the load, if that makes sense. Absolutely. Now, it's a little different when we talk about like a heavy barbell and like prepping a CNS. So that's like the general structure of the warm-up that I would encourage. So right there, right, it's 45 minutes. And if you think hearing that you should warm up for 45 minutes is a shocking thing to hear, then maybe look at your warm-up and seeing how you could do that and prep your system.
And I think when you say, hey, you need to warm up for 45 minutes, people have this vision, but the reality is a lot of people do that already. It's true, just don't time it, right? They spend 10 minutes foam rolling and stretching their hips and all this stuff. Then they spend another 10 or 15 minutes doing like active dynamic warm up, stuff like that. And then they're going into their movement prep and preparing for their workout. So I don't think it's as big of a deal as most people will make it out to be.
It's true. Yeah. And I think, so if you take that as like the general like template, or whatever, and then you can overlap it into different types of workouts, right? Like if you have, and maybe I'll talk extremes and you can kind of understand, and you'd have to learn how to apply it a little bit yourself. But if you have a sprint workout, you need to expose your body to some sprinting, right? And so you take that basic warm-up, and we talk about that specific warm-up at the end. Maybe it's, replicating a little bit of a sprint in there, kind of, break the seal, right?
Right.
Adrian talks about breaking the seal, and I love it. It's so true. And so taking time to make sure that, you expose your body to a very small piece of the stress that's coming, right? Mm-hmm. If you're going to have to lift a maximal effort, with let's just say a snatch, right? Part of your workout is building up to a 1 RM snatch. Well, you're going to have to prep your central nervous system for that a little bit. I think like 5-second airdyne sprints is a good part of that without actually having hands on a barbell. You still need hands on a barbell, but that's an important piece too. You can also take, just warm up or work up to a heavy. So if 100 pounds, easy math here, 100 pounds is your max snatch. Now, in your warm up, you probably don't want to warm up to 1 RM, but you can warm up very quickly within, let's say, 6-7 minutes to a heavy, and that might be like 85%, 90%, something like that. Now we're gonna, we could talk about neuromuscular efficiency and who should do what, but just realize when it feels heavy, that's probably enough to start like waking your central nervous system up. And so taking the opportunity to do that will help you out in the long run when you're faced with a barbell. I like personally the format I like and I enjoy the most is give yourself 10 repetitions. And I learned this from Mike Bergner, working with him, where he basically, part of his warm-up that he would give me, he'd be like, you have 10 reps, and I want you to work up to a heavy single. And if it's a PR for the day, it's a PR. If it's not, it's not. So you could do, after your warm-up, you could use 5 reps with an empty barbell, and then you have 5 left. Right, and then maybe you could do 2 at like 135, and then you have 3 left. Right, and then you have so forth and so on. So you could do all signals. You could do 4, 3, 2, 1, 1, 1, 1. But you only get 10 repetitions, which I really like because it forces you to understand how you warm up. It forces you to get through that piece very, very quickly, and it keeps. I think it kept me away from the perpetual like, oh, I missed that. Okay, I'm going to try it again. And it's like 20 minutes later, and it's like it's supposed to be a warm-up and frustrations and everything. No, it's like you get 10.
Especially if it's like a clean and jerk, right? That jerk, you don't want to exhaust your shoulders because once they go, they're not going to recover as quickly as your legs.
Completely, yeah. So try it out. Go take 10 repetitions next time you're warming up for something, and see what you think.
I like that. Are there any different considerations for masters athletes that want to go on to this qualifier, or like what group would they fall into, and how would they approach it differently?
I think it's probably similar to the regional, like the regional bubble athlete, where the only difference is that the open actually matters a little bit more, because it's a part of your score. And so you kind of got to go in with the best possible scores and performance each open week. And so hands down, if you can, there's a varying degree of masters athletes and how we recover and all this stuff. But generally, if you can successfully, and we're talking about, getting to the games. If getting to the games is your goal, then repeat the workouts, hands down. Because an extra place there is going to buy you points when it comes down to the master qualifier. So hands down, repeat it as far apart in the week as possible. Friday morning, Monday afternoon, Thursday night. I'm not a big fan of like Thursday night. It's just too like last minute. It's not enough to think through things, like prepare, but doesn't mean you can't be successful at it. So try to pick it as far as possible. And I think with masters athletes, just as anybody, but more so, it's your recovery has to be on point. Your job as an athlete come the open is to recover, period. And your ability to recover will directly relate to how you perform. And so look at where you are now. If you have any aches and pains, this goes for anybody really. Maybe if you're 20 years old, maybe it's a little different, I don't know. But If you have any aches and pains, something that's nagging you now, address it now. Because if you go into the open, it's not going to have an opportunity to get better.
Yeah, Jeff Prejean won the 40 to 45-year-old Open last year, which was absolutely insane. He doesn't have the body type for that at all.
Yeah, it was awesome.
It was crazy. It was very, very cool to watch him do that. But I remember having conversations with him where he would do really well on a workout, and sometimes I would still tell him, hey, you should probably do that again, because every single point matters here. Because if you can get a first place on those first 5 workouts versus a 6th place, that's going to add up when we're talking about going into the qualifier. And the year before, he was in the bottom of the pack of making it into the games, right? Just again, because he's so tall.
Yeah.
So you really have to, even if you know you're going to make that top 200, it makes sense to do even better, because that first 5 is part of your score to make it to the games.
Yeah.
So that's
absolutely.
huge.
Yeah.
Word, man. You got anything else to wrap it up before we get going?
Man, I don't know. There's so many unique considerations. I just really think that it goes back to that sense of urgency that you kind of mentioned, right? Like, this is the time to get on it. This is the time to get fired up. This is the time to start, looking at open prep videos. This is the time to start filming yourself and sharing it with a friend, putting it out there. I think that overall, you being confident with your movement, your setup, it's just one less thing to think about.
Mm-hmm.
And that goes for like nutrition, sleep, like all that stuff, right?
Get ready now.
Yeah.
You'll be in a better spot psychologically, if nothing else, for sure. Being more prepared. You'll feel more confident. I love that. All right, man. Where can they find you?
Best place is Instagram on the Nick Fowler. It's just the Nick Fowler. On Instagram, you can send me a message if you're interested in reaching out, asking me a question. Also, massiveathletics.com. It's a local gym in Salt Lake, kind of my home. Love it.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
And if you want to get coached by you can go to brutestrengthtraining.com /programs/games prep.
There you go. Sign up today. Don't wait. Sense of urgency.
Hell yeah. Get after it, guys. Thanks, Nick.
Yeah.